Hello. Today I wanted to discuss the topic of intuition. I've been a fairly intuitive person my whole life, but I recently had an experience where I let logic and wishful thinking overrule my own intuitive knowing, and it just reminded me that there are really a few very easy steps to help you determine when you are receiving intuitive information, and that's what I wanted to share with you today.
This dangerous feeling to know what to believe in. Baby, you are on my mind, all I think about, and I don't wanna stop. I don't wanna stop.
So I'll begin by simply providing the definition of intuition, which is the ability to know something through your feelings rather than based on any facts or evidence. And that is exactly why it can be hard to rely on your own intuition, because it tends to defy logic. But through the years, I began to recognize that there were always these key factors that remained consistent when I was indeed getting an intuitive hit of information. So, number one, what is your instantaneous impression? Without hesitation, what was your first thoughts or impressions or feelings about a circumstance or a question or a person that you're meeting? Because chances are, once you begin to consider the circumstances and you think through the facts, you then begin to lose your ability for clear insight, and that's when indecision and uncertainty will set in, and you'll start second guessing yourself. So if you can remain conscious of what was your first thoughts or impressions about a situation. And I'll give you a really good example. I was doing some fundraising work, and I was working with a company, and the individual who was organizing it was a very pleasant man, and he was very positive and uplifting and very generous. But from day one, I got a really off feeling about him. But I enjoyed doing the fundraising work. But it was shortly thereafter that I learned that he had been doing some pretty underhanded and deceptive things through his company. And when I had first met him, one of the words that kind of was hanging over his head, sometimes I get visual words about people, was like spy or, distrust and things like that. And so I had that intuitive hit immediately when I met him, although, it's information you're not sure what to do, because I hadn't had any interactions or experiences with him that, would indicate that. So number two, when you have that instantaneous surge of information, now combine that with how you're feeling about the situation. So is it a good feeling or a bad feeling? And those feelings, chances are, they're going to be combined also with a physical sensation. And so say you're having a really good feeling about something. You might have butterflies in your stomach, your hair might stand up on end, you might have a surge of energy. If you're having kind of a negative or a not so good feeling about something, you may have dry mouth, you might start to sweat, you might start to have, like a rock in your stomach or something like that. So usually the feelings will be backed up by any physical sensations. So that's kind of the other bookend to what was your immediate impression, what are you feeling, and what are the physical sensations. And I have found that 99% of the time I can rely on that, and that is your intuition. I'm not letting wishful thinking or logic interplay. And the example that I had most recently was I was out walking early in my neighborhood one morning, and I saw this very lovely, really kitten. It was very young, under 6 months, out on the sidewalk by the road. And I live in the desert, so when I do find strays, I take it very serious because of the elements. Their survival rate is pretty low here. And I was with a friend, and the cat to me looked too young. I wouldn't have let a cat out that young. The cat looked a little thin to me, but it was so friendly that my intuition was sort of saying to me, this is somebody's cat. But my friend kind of convinced me that we needed to take this cat back to the house, And as I thought it through, of course, I wouldn't want to abandon an animal that needed food and shelter. So I picked up the cat and I walked around the block, took it back to my house. As soon as I got into the house, I got a bowl of milk and some cat food. And with my experience with strays, they're usually very dehydrated, will drink anything that you give them. They're usually very, very hungry and will eat pretty much anything you give them. This cat didn't do either of those things. And this cat was starting to panic that it was now into the house. I suddenly got this overwhelming impression to take this cat back, and I got cramps in my stomach that were so painful that I could not ignore or deny that I hadn't listened to my intuition, that this was somebody's cat. I was like, you know, we have to bring this cat back immediately, which I did. I walked it around the block, put it back exactly on the sidewalk where I found it. And where I live in my neighborhood, we have a social media page, so I had taken a picture of the cat, immediately posted and just said, hey, you know, I've been seeing this cat. Does anybody know if it belongs to someone? And within 30 minutes, a neighbor said, yes, that's my cat. So I had that initial intuitive hit that this was somebody's cat, but I didn't listen to it, and that just shows you how easily we can be influenced either by our own biases or fears or the influence of another person around us. So one of the ways through the years that I've tried to kind of build my confidence that I could indeed rely on my own intuition and not be making mistakes is that I would document them and I would write them down, and in as much detail as you can. And then you have a record of it. If it does take days or weeks or even months or a year for things to play out, but you had pretty strong impressions or getting information, just write it down and put it aside. And the other thing, especially the last few years for me, is I started telling my best friend when I would have intuitive information that kind of defied logic, and then that way, you know, that person can validate it for you. So that's kind of intuition as I experience it in a nutshell. And just to differentiate with the difference of what a psychic is, to me at least, everybody has their own definitions. To me, a psychic is somebody that gets really specific, detailed information. You go to them and they say, in the month of March, you're going to be at a bookstore and you're going to meet a gentleman and he'll be from Cuba, and you're going to open a business by by the summer. That's really specific information. And when I'm using my intuition, it's usually kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, you know, good, bad. It's more black and white. Sometimes I get a little bit more information. But so that's that. The only other thing I thought was just worth mentioning, just very, very quickly, is some of you who may have tuned in to see this about intuition, you may also be a sensitive. And that's definitely something that I didn't recognize that I also was until I've read a lot, I've talked to a lot of people about it, people have said stuff to me in readings about it, and to me a sensitive is when you have the ability to detect or respond to information that is hidden, that is yet to be revealed, and a lot of times the information never will be revealed. And I'm pretty good at reading people, and I always thought I was just using, you know, Psychology 101, or I was very keen on picking up mannerisms and body languages and tone. But in reality, I'm able to pick up information and read people's energetic fields. And sometimes it's information that those people are never going to share with you, don't want to share with you. And there's been times where people have said to me kind of like, you know, oh, you're too sensitive, you're overthinking it, you're taking things too personal. And what I've come to realize is that I'm actually getting information from that person. And I don't know what to do with it. And like a really easy example is, say, you've been trying to get to go out to lunch with a friend or a family member and they keep canceling, and it never sits right with you and you feel like more is going on, but that person never says anything. And I won't even know sometimes if it's about me personally, or maybe they're going through some life situation that they're not revealing to me, but I always have this sense that there's more, but you just can't put your finger on it. And I think it's the part of me that's able to read. If you saw one of my videos I did on auras, we have layers of energy surrounding us, and these energetic fields, sort of like tentacles, go out into the world, into our environment and atmosphere. They're always interacting with people in particular, and they retrieve information back to us. And I also did a video on chakras, and through our chakras, which are spinning vortexes of energy, we're processing this information. And that truly is how we're maneuvering through the life, or through our lives, whether you're aware of it or not. It is a constant energetic exchange between people. And some people are very, very sensitive, and they're constantly picking up on information. And the one thing, I'm very into cleansing, energetic cleansing and protection. And the one thing that I could say, if this resonates to you and you think you are receiving information that you don't know what to do with, you can put, of course, everybody knows about the white light of protection around you. But another really good technique, especially if you're going to be interacting, say in a group of people you don't know, or even people that are negative that you do know, surround yourself with mirrors and set the intention that any negativity will be reflected back. And that's my favorite one to do when you're in a negative situation. And of course, there is always using sage for cleansing. There's also cord cutting, which are two other videos that I've done. So there are a lot of energy techniques that you can use to help you. So I'll try to keep this video short and sweet, but please leave any comments if you have any further questions for me. And as always, I'm wishing everybody great health and all the best, and I'll see you in my next Digesting the Soul video. Bye-bye.
If we stay together